everybody, Trevor here, and welcome to another Top 5 video. And today's topic is going to be about certain elements that do not deserve to be canon in Thomas and Friends. As a longtime Thomas fan, while I do prefer the TV series in terms of expanding the Thomas lore, but there are certain elements I think shouldn't be canon to the TV series in the first place, and I'll get to those in a minute. But first, I want to give out a few rules. I will not be talking about Thomas Magic Railroad nor All Engines Go because I know most of you are tired of hearing about them. And besides, I already gave my 2 cents on the first Thomas film countless times on my YouTube channel. This is for seasons 1 all the way to 24 only, so don't expect there to be any promotional material, especially on YouTube. Now with those things out of the way, let's begin this brand new Top 5, shall we? Coming at number 5 is Misty Island itself. Now I know what you're thinking. Why did you decide to put Misty Island number 5 on this list? Everyone knows that Misty Island sucks eggs. Well, simple. Because in my honest opinion, as bad as Misty Island Rescue is, it had the potential to be really good if it had better writing, direction, and characters, that is. I also love the idea of having another fictional island in the Thomas lore, besides Sodor, of course. If you have watched my video on how I'd fix Misty Island, then you know that I would rewrite Ferdinand as the island's equivalent of Edward, and he would keep Bash and Dash in order. I also would move Misty Island to another part of the globe, like somewhere in North America where this is inspired from. In addition, I would add some more realism, like having old Weezy and Hee-Haw act like normal cranes instead of reckless ones. I'll provide a link to that video in the description below if you want more details on it. Number 4 is Tobys' branch line. I'm sure some of you knew this one is coming. Ever since season 5, Tobys gotten his old branch line back on Sodor, though it was never really explained how and why Toby got his branch line again. Unless you count that Good Old Days fan episode by Project Tiger Moth, then I can understand where you're coming from. Now, as much as I enjoyed that fan-made episode overall, but in the original Railway series, Toby's old tramway was in East Anglia in England, not Sodor. I know they didn't have the budget to do that back then, but at the same time, it would have made more sense to introduce East Anglia in the official TV series canon. And if I wanted a proper reboot of Thomas, I want to have the same exact feel as the adventure begins with CGI and stuff. Besides, I really miss Farquhar's sheds back in season 2 where Thomas, Percy, and Toby used to rest and sleep together, but sadly, it got replaced ever since season 3. Number 3, the Bluebell Railway in season 4. Now don't get me wrong, I love Stepney as a character, and I still think season 4 is one of the best and most beautiful seasons in the classic era, but when it comes to the official TV series canon, I think they should have stayed true to the original story in the Railway series where Stepney was saved by the Bluebell Railway staff, not Rusty. And besides, Rusty is a fictional character. He couldn't really travel to the mainland by himself anyway. And yes, I know Rusty the Rescue takes place in Vickerstown and not the mainland, but it still would have made better sense if they copied the same story as in the books because that's what really happens in real life. And that Stepney is based on a real locomotive with the same name, just like the Flying Scotsman and Sia Churro. However, I think the reason Burrellcroft did this is because she thought the original story was a little too dark for younger audiences, like the part where Percy mentions that they cut them up. Still, if I wanted the Bluebell branch line to be canon to the show, then I think they should have made a brand new original character to take Stepney's place, while Stepney himself can stay on the real Bluebell Railway on the mainland where he belongs. That way, it would reflect the real world even more. Number 2, certain locations in Journey Beyond Sodor. In my opinion, Journey Beyond Sodor was an okay movie. It had some good things such as the new characters like Merlin, as well as some bad things. For example, the inconsistent locations on the mainland. Now about the mainland canal. At first, I thought this takes place in Bristol, but according to Michael White, it takes place in the Far East in England. And that's another thing. What's the inspiration for the mainland steelworks? Is it based on the infamous Berry Island scrapyard or something? Oh wait, it's based on the Homestead, Pennsylvania steelworks. My bad. Anyways, if I'm wrong on all this, please feel free to correct me in the comment section below, but try not to be too harsh about it, okay? Because I can't take brutal honesty. Now, before I get to my number one pick, I just want to give a couple dishonorable mentions. Smudger replacing Stanley. The reason they did this in the show was because of budget constraints, where they had to repaint Rhaenyra's model and give him an original face. In other words, I don't mind this being a different Canon from the Railway series because I still think Smudger is a cool and interesting character. Though, it would have been nice if they brought him back to the CGI series along with Duke and Bertram. Henry's Forest. I actually enjoyed this episode because not only is it environmental, but it does show that Henry can have a soft side rather than a grumpy and snooty one, and that he cares about the forest and its inhabitants. Though I can understand why Wilbur Audrey didn't like this one in the first place. And the number one spot goes to various elements in Big World Big Adventures. I know I considered seasons 22 to 24 an overall mixed bag, but there are a lot of things I think should never have been canon in the first place. For instance, the reskins of already existing characters such as Nally being a reskin of Dart, as well as Carr being a retexture of Beresford with Merrick's modified face. I swear, if you're gonna do recolors of American designs, why couldn't you redesign Rosie, Philip, Timothy, Connor, Caitlin, etc.? But no, you had to retexture Dart and Frankie in the movie. That just shows how lazy you are, Mattel. And that's another thing. There are a lot of locations in this era that are copies of previous locations on Sodor, such as Victoria Station looking like Vickerstown Station for some odd reason. And not to mention, there are places in other countries that actually don't have railroad tracks lying around in real life. For example, the colorful mountain range in China known as Zhangyi-Dangxia. I really don't know what Mattel was thinking when making this final movie. Oh, and there are no railroad tracks on the Great Wall of China either. Imagine if people were walking on it and got run over by Thomas. Now that would be horrible, but at the same time, it would have been hilarious. So, do you agree with my list? Let me know your thoughts below on which parts of the Thomas show you think deserve to be decanonized. And if I personally wanted a proper reboot of Thomas, then I think they should make it more like The Adventure Begins instead of ripping off Chuggington and the Mighty Express. Besides, kids truly deserve better, and Mattel needs to get their freaking act together for once when it comes to handling Thomas in general. Anyways, this is Trevor Davis, and I'll see you next month.